Welcome to the Culture of You, meaningful dialogue with me and my favorite people. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Culture of You. I am so excited for our guest today. My name is Karen Hewitt, and I'm your host. And I have with me the partner at Writ Large Projects, editor of Cultural Daily, podcast host for Are You There, Are You There, Ghost? It's me, Chiwan. I love this. It's my favorite. Writer, proofreading, designing, publishing, author relations, event planning, live events, social media marketing, and also many other things that I haven't quite named here. But most importantly, my dear, dear friend, Chiwan has seen both of my books from beginning to end, edited them, helped me format them, and has just been a gift to me personally as an author and a poet and a writer. So I am more than happy to invite and welcome Chiwan Choi to the stage, to the virtual stage. What's up, friend?
Karen, I love you. Good to see your face.
We could just like sit here in silence, but we won't. So how have you been? It's been a minute since we talked. We did record a while ago an episode. So that was like the
Yeah,
last time we talked.
yeah. How have I been?
Mm-hmm.
Just caught up in the pain and craziness of the world right now.
Yeah, I definitely want
Yeah,
to take
it's
a
hard to even take time off from it.
mm,
It's hard to even force my brain to just remove itself from it for a bit.
because we're all tied up in it, right? And just to
Yeah,
acknowledge what's going on, the conflict in Gaza. I don't know when you're listening to this. It is November of 2023, and what a time in our world. What a time of reckoning, of um, liberation and the resistance of oppression. Like
yeah,
it really is that time in our world. It is pretty devastating, I think, to watch and to try and figure out your own personal strategy around care as well as art and creativity. We're supposed to mirror the times. um
yeah.
so how has that looked for you with your art and your writing, and how's your self-care there?
It's interesting because like after I finished my last poetry book, I was like, this is too emotionally draining. So I just want to take time off and write a
Mhm.
horror story because I love horror movies and stuff. It brought I started writing this horror story about a serial killer and all these things. It brought up all this shit with about my dad and
Oh
my
no.
relationship with him, about being an immigrant. And I
Mhm.
was like, God damn it. I thought this was gonna be fun.
You're like, oh, there's always work.
Yeah. So now I guess pretty much most of us, I don't want to say everybody, but we weren't prepared to witness a genocide in our lifetime.
No, we weren't.
So no matter how old we are, we're sort of learning on the fly how to
Mhm.
be in this world right now. So I'm
Yeah.
on that same boat. I feel like the kid in many ways, like trying to figure out what's going on in the world and what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. And I think as artists, there can be an expectation to know what to do. And we're
Yeah,
like, we all are on this journey for the first time too. Like I never would have thought I would ever witness that. I work in DEI, and
yeah.
I'm like, okay, um, there's not a framework for this. And like,
In case of genocide.
what? Right. Like, what? And then, I mean, there's so much grappling, there's so many questions. And, you know, it's not great to be in this nation. Um,
Mm,
and to be, I don't know, a casualty of the decisions of leadership.
yeah,
Um,
you're
I would think,
you're you're
yeah,
forced into this complicity that you didn't sign up for. and then you have to come to grips with all that, and it's like as an immigrant, for me, it's like, what does it mean to move to this country? Like, I don't know
Ooh.
what the implication is of that. It's like, is this what we wanted ultimately, to
Mm.
be part of the power of so I don't
Yeah.
know.
And it's an election year starting this month. It's the next 12
Yes,
months
yes,
is an
yeah,
election year. Ooh, it is time, but what I do know and what I find hope in is the advocacy, is the speaking out, is the continued sharing and awareness and witnessing that we can do as a community. And what I can say for sure is that Gen Z Alpha, they're not going for it. And like
yeah,
things that tactics that that like thought they were gonna work and like just be like, oh yeah, it's okay. We'll do 4 hours of no
yeah,
a ceasefire. And people are like, nope, not going for it. Like that's not it. Like
yeah,
you literally have destroyed
yeah,
over
yeah,
50% of Gaza. Like, what do you mean?
yeah.
Um,
It's like I've literally spent 4 hours every night scrolling TikTok. So 4 hours is nothing.
oh man, I can't do TikTok. I be on Instagram with the lives. I'll be on like Amanda
Yeah,
Seals live or watching who is that? I don't want to say the names wrong. Basan and like the reporters that are there, the journalists
yeah,
that are
yeah,
there right now. And whew, it is and you do have to take some breaks, but like they don't get to. So it's like mm,
yeah.
mm,
So it's like almost that brief moment of levity each day. It's like it's both like so important, but also I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about it. Like, is it
like
okay that I just watched the stupid movie for 2 hours?
is it okay that I went to sleep
Yeah,
and
that kind
ate
of thing.
food? It's really
Yeah,
it's really
yeah,
hard. It's really hard on
yeah,
the people connected. And I think artists are the most connected. So it's definitely a really strange, horrific, and I think um if there's anything, I think we realize there's more of us,
yeah,
there's more of us that are not going for oppression and the language and the narratives that have been fed to us.
yeah,
And where there's a certain level of solidarity and unity that I'm given hope by to some degree,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So outside of existential dread, tell me a little bit about the type of culture. I will also ask this question is like, what's your vibe?
uh,
Personally, professionally, and if they're the same, I imagine they're the same for you. Just tell us a little bit about what you try to create and what the culture is around you.
I think I find great comfort and joy in both for myself speaking up in my writing, but
Mhm,
being in a space or creating a space where people can just be honest. So it's like my approach to writing and even teaching writing has always been like, in this room, can we just talk? You know?
mhm, mhm,
Um, Now that doesn't take away the pain. In fact, it gets even heavier a lot of times, but it allows like this joy and like comfort to coexist.
mhm,
Sort of like, oh, I'm not alone. It's sort of like that feeling of I'm not alone in all this,
mhm.
not just existential dread, but my personal struggle through things.
Yeah.
So I'm still constantly seeking that, you know. Sometimes it comes and just like, sending memes to each other with friends. And sometimes it is about like sharing writing with each other and stuff.
Mhm,
But it still has that um sense of like, it really gives me the sense of like I am not completely alone in whatever struggle it is, you know.
Yeah.
So when I have that, I feel like this, oh, maybe it's all worth it kind of feeling that comes
Mhm.
with it, and it gives me this great sense of um joy. I don't know how else to put it. It's
Mhm.
weird saying that because the grief part does never goes away. It's just it gives
No,
me a
it's
moment where I could experience both.
well, I think we expand around
Mm.
grief. Like grief doesn't change. Um,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
we
Expand is
get
a good
we
word.
get
Yeah,
we get big around it, and hopefully we're able to hold it with everything else, you know?
yeah,
There's so much
yeah.
grief. We weren't built
Uh,
for this type of grief. Like humans, I mean, in God's whatever flawless design, we
yeah,
were we weren't built to like
yeah.
I was listening to something and it was saying, school age children these days, we had September 11th. We had, Columbine really rocked us as a school shooting,
Mm.
but these students are experiencing big events like monthly
Yeah,
at the least, if
yeah,
not more. And so like we just weren't built for this level of repetitive
yeah,
grief and loss and violence and chaos. Like what?
yeah,
Hmm. So with that, let's talk about journalism, publishing. You have your own, publishing
yeah.
of a lot of sorts. And I know there's been lots going on there. And then there was the writer's strike. So, I mean, what's the tea? I guess maybe what's the biggest challenge you see right now in there? Because okay, so let me preface everybody with this. So you wrote the book before. Was this last one the one that you put out for everybody, intellectual property, right? You
Yeah,
made it
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
Google, yeah, you made it accessible to everybody. It was like a Google Drive that everybody could access
yeah.
with your book. And so, talk a little bit about that decision to do that, and then kind of what you've seen in the last year or so of publishing and with the writer strike, like what that's done.
Um, so I'll speak on it as a poet, as a publisher, and as like a bookseller and stuff like that.
Hmm.
The reason I put out the book, my last book, not just as a free download, but free of intellectual, like free of copyright, basically,
Hmm.
um, was as a poet, except a handful, you're still having to have a job to support yourself.
Hmm.
So at that point, I was like, um, why do I still need to fight for a few pennies per book I sell? What is
Literally.
the, yeah, when a reader has to spend 15-20, the writer gets $1 or two from it, and everything else in between disappears to
Hmm.
somebody else. Like, you know,
Take
why
it.
is this? Yeah, why is this $18 between me and my reader?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if I'm gonna invest this much time writing it, I rather have people read it than not read it because they don't have the money.
That's like legacy work too, like
Yeah,
it's always going
yeah,
to exist, available for
yeah,
download. Yeah.
yeah. So that was the main reason. Um, as a publisher, it's, we've always been like very intentional in the writers we do work with. Um, it's not always like the person we think is going to sell a lot of books. It's just people we respect for various reasons, as a writer,
Hmm.
as a person in the community, like just all kinds of things.
Hmm.
So that hasn't changed at all. Um, the next phase for us is that we have this building that we were awarded here in Braddock, in right outside Pittsburgh,
Hmm.
um, where we were going to open a bookstore. So it's just navigating through what's our purpose, what is it that we're trying to achieve, what does this need to be for this community? How do we make this a lasting thing that can outlast us, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's still all the things we're trying to figure out. Um, yeah, it's bookstores could be such incredible things for a community, but it could also be just another shop,
Yeah.
no different than a clothing store or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, um, we need to put into word, put it down. This is what our goal is. This is what we need it to be. This is what this neighborhood needs it to be, and all those
Mm-hmm.
things. So we're still working on that.
Fantastic. That sounds creative and hard.
Yeah, yeah,
Along and you have good people with you, but it just sounds like a heavy lift. But thank you.
yeah, yeah. It's fun. I mean, it's fun figuring that out because you feel like a sense of purpose, like that goes beyond you. And then
Mhm.
sometimes as a writer, we get so isolated that it's hard to think beyond us, you know?
Yes, I have the next book is coming, so prepare for that. The next book is coming and I like get to figure out like when that time is. And typically my writing time, my genius hours are like 6 to 10 in the morning. So it's like, how can I block off
Oh,
this time
you're a
so I can
morning
do it?
writer.
I
You're a morning.
am.
Yeah,
I
I'm a
am.
nighttime writer. Yeah.
My brain is like, absolutely not after 8 p.m. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. You could talk, you can interact, but right? Mm-mm. No, you're not going to do that
Bef-
after.
for me, before midnight, it's like, what are you doing trying to write? It's not even midnight yet.
You're just up all night writing. You just didn't
Yeah.
sleep. Funny. So, how have you experienced your friends who are writing and the writer strike? What has been the biggest takeaway for you from that?
Um, it's it's been strange because the way I experience writer's strike is first and foremost as a longtime LA resident.
Mhm,
And because so much economy is around Hollywood,
mhm,
because so much of their labor is like blue collar work, is Teamsters and all those things.
mhm,
So anytime there's a Hollywood strike, the people who get hit the fastest are the service industry people.
mhm,
Like bars get empty, people
mhm,
don't tip, people don't go out to eat. So those people get hit hard first. And I've seen that multiple times. So I always feel the pain for them first.
mhm, mhm.
um, and then the writer thing has been just, it's almost like the streaming stuff turned the writing industry into basically same as the shittiness of the music industry.
Like AI,
Yeah,
like,
where the artists get nothing and
mhm.
the labels and the distributors, they get all the money.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask Spotify, they've been using that model all along, though.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
it's fine.
yeah. And now they've thrown in like audiobooks.
Mhm.
And I don't think writers get any money from those audiobooks on Spotify because
I don't think so.
they're just given to whoever the subscribers are.
I mean, it's
Like,
like it's something like if you stream a certain amount, I have friends who are
yeah,
artists
yeah,
and poets and doing stuff on
yeah,
Spotify. And I obviously have this podcast on Spotify, but
yeah,
like I would have to hit some really ridiculous numbers to
yeah,
monetize. And
yeah.
it's not what I'm here for, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's like constantly, um, and then you go, okay, those streaming services, they're awful. And then you go, well, Spotify is owned by all the labels, the major labels. So it's like, it's just almost like just a front. to screw the artist even
Yeah.
more.
Well, and recently they were like, oh, okay, we ended this or whatever,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
just
yeah.
really think they were just sick of us being on our phones on social media watching the genocide. Like, I think that was where it was like, they were like, we gotta get some more hero movies in here. Call the troops back in. That's probably a bad reference, but call the people back in, call the actors
Yeah,
back in, and let's
yeah,
like make it a thing.
yeah.
So that people have something else to watch, other than Hallmark Christmas movies and people dying. So it's like, oh, let's do some more hero and villain stories where we all get
Where,
the idea in America that we're the heroes and we're not.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Existential dread. Come on, hang on in here. So in terms of creating community, you're in Pittsburgh, but you have a vast, vast network of friends and writers all across the globe. How has creating community really shifted for you after COVID and currently?
Uh, main thing when we realized we were staying in Pittsburgh for a while was, people constantly asking, "Are you doing events there yet?" and stuff like that. And for us, it was like, no, because you can't just go into a new town and decide that they need you.
Right.
I mean,
I
it's
got to
like,
talk to somebody and be like, what do
yeah,
you need?
yeah, you have to get to live there. You have to feel like you're part of it. You have to see what's there. You have to contribute. You have to be, um, take part. You have to attend, and then see what can I contribute into this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a question that we get asked all the time about, oh, when are you starting to do stuff in Facebook? We've been asked this over the years we've been here, and it's like, we don't know yet when we're gonna start doing things, because we don't feel that we don't feel like we become part of the community enough
Mm.
to have to to say, hey, this is what you need. You know what I
Come be
mean?
with us. We're the coolest
Yeah,
kids on the
yeah.
block, and you
So I
need this.
think,
Yeah.
in talking to people who do events and stuff, um, it's often a complex thing for them to understand. They're like, but we're doing
Mhm.
good things. It's like, I don't care. Like, I don't care if you're doing good. You know what I mean?
You just want a rental space. You just want a space to
Yeah.
do your thing. And we're trying to be
Yeah.
in right relationship with the community.
Hmm.
Pardon us.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but, finally, like, we go to neighborhood meetings and stuff. In the neighborhood, we're gonna have the bookstore.
Hmm.
Um, we go to events, get to know them, see what they need,
Hmm.
and see if we could tailor what it is we do to provide all those things,
Yeah.
at least a lot of those things. Um, yeah, because or else you're just extracting, you're not contributing anything.
Mm. Yeah. You definitely want to be a value add in those
Yeah,
communities, especially communities that haven't seen you
yeah,
or are used to having lack.
yeah, 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 yeah. So
Mhm.
you weren't here yesterday. We don't need you today, unless
We
you
were
are
struggling
here.
just
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Thanks.
We don't need you to help us struggle.
No, for real. Like that's a t-shirt, I think. Um, that's definitely a t-shirt for like all the nonprofit
Yeah,
providers.
yeah,
Like, you weren't here yesterday. We don't need you today.
yeah. Oh man.
So, so are you there, ghosts? It's me, Chiwan.
Mhm.
Tell me about this podcast. It's so many episodes, and I got to listen to a lot because I wanted to tap in and kind of see what some of those stories were. And I really enjoy the paranormal. So tell us about that. I
I
love it.
think for me, um, my entire life has been filled with ghosts.
Hmm.
So it's been both an obsession and like this curiosity and like this thing that I constantly feel like I need to unlock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at first it sort of started like as a joke, like, hey, it would be funny to do this. But the thing it's allowed me to do, and I think it's allowed my guests to do, is just be a person instead of a writer, you know? Like, because I
Yeah.
only interview writers, like, let's just talk about ghosts.
It's so
Because,
cool. And like
yeah.
some of the stories, I was like, what? Like there was one where it's like a house. If I had to imagine it, it'd be like a house in a movie in the middle of nowhere. And like the stories about like the dolls being in like circles. And I was just like,
Yeah.
what? Like this is
Oh my God.
wild.
That was Samantha Dunn. I was like, Samantha, you know, you need to stop writing sometimes and watch these horror movies because they would have told you not to move into that house.
I mean, we all knew. Like we if
Yeah.
we were with you, we all knew when you got to
Would
that
have been
door,
like,
like
what are you doing?
cue horror music. Like you don't
Yeah.
even you know better
Yeah.
than this.
Yeah. But it's been what's been really sort of like has be had me nodding my head all the time is how much a person's specific culture
Mm,
informs the paranormal experiences they have.
mm,
So talking to an Asian person will be a different thing, and talking to a person from like um Trinidad, Tobago, it's a different thing. Like
yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's the culture, so much of the culture, which means it's our history and it's our
Mm,
ancestors, all those things that's being that we carry with us, you know.
yes.
So that's been really beautiful
Ooh,
and eye-opening for me.
that's really profound around the way that culture will show up um in everything, right? It'll
Yeah.
show up in everything, but then those stories and the fact that you're connecting with people of all these different cultures and backgrounds, like you'll get to hear. So, I mean, those stories are magnificent. If you get a chance, listen to that podcast. Spend, binge watch it like you binge listen like you would listen
Yeah.
to whatever. Um, but it's so profound to think about that because if you think about it from an African perspective or like having cultural roots in enslavement in times of enslavement and descendants of that, it's like, oh wow, this becomes even deeper. It
Mm,
becomes like, are there messages, are there voices, are there downloads, are there helpful informations and insights that come with that? And I would have to say yes, for
yeah.
all of those experiences that I've had. And recently it's just been like, even with the birds singing a certain way on a certain day, or if a specific type of bird, like I know that's my nephew, right? Like so it's like
Mm,
having these conversations, it's like, oh my goodness. And then how many ways have we been taught to not embrace our own cultural habits around communicating in the other
mm,
realms?
hmm.
Like we've been told not to do it, but there's so much power there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like I I love stories where it's just spooky as hell. Like
Mhm.
dolls sitting in a circle in your house. Um
What?
where it's straight up, it's like straight horror story.
Hmm.
But then I am so moved by countless stories of how the ghosts and the paranormal and hauntings are so related to their relationship or lack of the relationship with their parents and their
Hmm.
grandparents, things like
Hmm.
that. And it's just, you know, it's almost like the ghosts are there because the person needed it to be there.
Hmm.
You know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's always so moving to me. It's like, oh, my father came to me after he passed away, and we never had a close relationship, and we had this conversation and all this stuff. And I go, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Moving from that, what is next for you around poetry or your next, like you're doing horror, And that is causing you also to have to unpack and do things like that. And obviously getting the space up to being in right relationship with the community. Are there any other projects you're working on right now?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's obviously we have like a publishing schedule for upcoming books, upcoming authors, and various stages of writing and stuff.
Hmm.
I'm personally writing a essay around ghosts, and specifically about my Ghostmaker project that I did in 2015 that I've
Hmm.
never written about. That I've been wanting, I finally feel ready to write about. Uh, um, so that's been kind of daunting emotionally because that was like
Hmm.
a super lonely time and difficult time in my
Hmm.
life. I was talking about it to my therapist this morning. I was like, like
There. Your therapist said.
um, yeah. So I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Last couple of weeks have been it's been a real struggle with dissociating and this
Hmm.
depression and stuff. So I'm trying to sort of maneuver through that and with that to get work done. And it's a struggle, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so but I'm actually interested and excited about how this essay will come out because I know I've been approached to write about it before and I've said no.
Hmm.
Uh, but one time early on, it was from a pretty major like university-based publication, and I said no because they had done some shitty. They had published some shitty poem a few weeks before that was kind of anti-native kind of thing. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Um, and so I'm constantly saying no to things for various reasons.
Hmm.
But I finally felt ready for it because I felt I don't know why I felt ready, but I felt ready. Like something was like, I think it's time I could write about it.
I think it's almost like when, because there's always projects and thoughts about what's next to write, and um, I think we're more ready to heal it. I write to heal,
Yeah.
and when it's like it's ready to be healed, or to be processed, then it's like time to write about it, and then there's a time for sharing, and
Mm,
and having community and conversations and a communal processing of sorts.
mm,
But for us as authors, I imagine that time of when we're like in it, is like a time when we're like, okay, I'm ready to process this and everything that came with it, and let's see what comes out of it.
yeah. Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Um, because you brought up communal. Ghostmaker was a very communal project,
Hmm.
but it was a project I wanted to do because I was in such a lonely place. It was almost like how do I create a project that will make me feel less lonely?
Hmm.
But it was a year-long project, and in the middle, by the middle of it, I felt the loneliness getting worse. I
Oh my
felt,
goodness.
and I think that was the big thing I haven't been able to process properly
Yeah.
because going into it, I didn't consider the emotional impact of it fully.
Hmm.
So coming out of it, I was definitely not ready to process it. You know, um,
So what was that project? Can you give us a little context on that project for
yeah,
those who
it
don't
was
know?
like a year-long project where starting in January, every other month, I would do an event where I would present, I'll read new pages I wrote of my novel in progress. And then after each reading, I would destroy the pages, both the physical copies and the digital copies. So by the end of the year, I had finished the book, but there was nothing left.
That You're so like creative and brilliant. I'm just like, what? Like, who thinks of that?
But
That's so
but it
brilliant.
was like two things, three things. One, like I said, was like, how do I do a thing where I could always have people around me so I don't
Mhm,
feel so lonely?
mhm,
That was like the super selfish reason. Two was recently someone had taken something I written and weaponized it against a friend.
mm,
So I was like, I don't want my words weaponized against me, which,
mm.
you know, that,
That
yeah, people do.
wow.
And thirdly, I was like, the only way I can make something permanent is to turn them into ghosts.
Mm,
So I
brilliant.
was like, what if I could turn this book into a ghost? Then you
That's
can't
so cool.
destroy it. You can't destroy it if I turn it into a ghost. Those were the
But
three
it
things.
existed.
Yeah, it
It
existed and
existed.
then it didn't. So people who were there all know it existed. They'll always know it existed. But I didn't calculate for the emotional toll it would take on me, destroying my work.
Grief.
Yeah, grief. I
Mm,
didn't,
mm,
I calculate the grief of it. It just
right.
didn't occur to me for some reason.
Mm. So much grief. So if you had a couple more questions for you. So if you had like a vision around that, because everybody's experiencing loneliness, hardcore.
Yeah,
Everybody's experiencing grief, hardcore, where like I noticed I've slowed down a lot in ways that like I can't be at everything. I can't like even getting up in the morning, like everything takes a little longer, right? And the movement is slower, but like what is your vision? I don't want to say solution because I don't want us to feel like we have to be responsible for creating solutions to problems we didn't create. Um,
yeah.
but like what's your vision? What's your North Star? What's your moral imperative around these times?
Man, easy question, huh?
The easiest of them all. That's why I saved it kind of for the
Man,
last.
I it sounds super hokey in many ways, but
Mhm,
whenever I talk to people in my life, like my friends, especially, like before we get into conversation, I try to remember to say I love you before we talk about anything else because
mhm.
I don't know what happens after it. It's like I
There's
just
no
need them to know.
promises.
Yeah, I just need this person to know that they mean something to me in my life, you know?
Yeah.
Before we talk about work, before anything, like because we got sometimes, you know, and we're in this place too a lot, trying to open this bookstore, all this stuff where beginning to end is just about production and work and stuff that we forget. Like I lose myself, and it's not helping that I'm already dealing with dissociation and stuff. It's like
Hmm.
I don't know where I am anymore. It's like it's the weird. So I almost like it's almost like I'm trying to anchor myself in my friends by saying I love you, so I could just like so I
Yeah, I
almost
think it's
like a
definitely a
tether.
grounding
So
thing.
yeah,
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 for
like a
sure.
tether for me. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And then go from there. See what comes from that. Um, even in writing, even in working with classes, it's like, hey, let's just appreciate each other for a bit because writing a great poem not gonna do shit for the world. Writing one great poem is not gonna do shit for the world. If to
Scott
do
might beg
that,
to differ, though.
if
Scott
it,
might
if
beg
he
to differ.
Scott, he might, but I deep down he does. That dude is full of love. That dude is full of love
Indeed.
for people, you know.
Yes. For community, for
Um,
people. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like I want you to do great work, but I don't want you to burn everything to create one piece of work.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
And so lead with love is what
yeah.
I'm hearing you
Because
say.
ultimately, this community will help you make even greater work. It's like I don't want you to feel like I did trying to do Ghostmaker, where I was getting lonelier and lonelier and just breaking down emotionally, where I couldn't create work anymore for a while because I was like so beaten down and broken, you know.
Mm. That's so deep. And the fact that so many artists aren't able to do it full time, but there's so much that goes with that writing. Like it's part of you on that page, it's part of you in the work. And we have to live to be able to create work that resonates with the lived experience, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Daunting,
Freaking daunting.
daunting. Well, we made choices, I guess. So
Choices were made.
choices were made. Apparently, a soul contract of some sort was signed before I got here, and I have to honor that. So this next part is what I like to call the situational hot seat.
Mhm.
And this is where you either give me a situation that has happened to you. You don't tell me exactly what you did until after I tell you what I would do. Then we
Uh,
talk about what you did, what you think about what you did, if you would do it again. And then we'll close out with all the links and all the things like that. But we just talk about a scenario. It could also be a made up one because you're very like uh imaginative, so it could also be a made up one, like what would you do in this case. So have fun with that. And then we'll discuss and process the situation that you present together.
oh man, what would this doesn't have to be like as a writer, right? It could be like as a person.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you do question?
Yeah.
All right. What would you do if someone asked you to someone you don't uh, not just not like, but who you just have oppositional beliefs, right?
Okay.
Asked you to write something for payment,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Your rent is due, your
Mm.
utilities are due, credit cards due. Um, would you take that job?
Ooh, 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 ooh. Um,
And part two of that question is how much would you drink?
well, I think I wouldn't drink until they paid me. I think at different times in my life, I would have done different things.
Mm,
I have a lot of like handy transferable skills. And to
mm,
me, I would rather take a temp job, uh, bag some groceries. I actually have a deep desire to bag groceries as a job. If everything ever failed, I knew I would like go and bag groceries. Um, I am not above any work, but when it comes to my point of loss and my integrity, uh, like my moral imperative is to honor the dignity of every human life and to sit in the brilliance of my own radiance because that's an invitation for others to do so.
yeah.
Now I can pretty easily say I would not do that.
Mm,
But it would depend on what was being asked of me to write. But like if it's not like a heart yes, if that was my like only way of making money, I'm sure I would grapple in different ways.
yeah.
I am just not at the point where I've ever felt like I have to, like, there's always something else to me. There's always something else I can do where I can be in my integrity and I can be proud of it and proud of
Mm,
my work. It would depend on the article. Um, I think it's really complicated around that because everyone has a different point of loss. I have this whole
Yeah.
theory. I got it freaking copyrighted and trademarked, like around point of loss and around dissociation and other adaptive strategies that we use to self-soothe. But the notion is that we will subconsciously, to some degree, dissociate or avoid or comply or fight against until we are aware that, like, this is the breaking point for me. Like I
Yeah.
can't do that. Like I can't, like I'd rather starve. I'd rather uh not pay my rent. I'd rather find another way than do this person with this person
Yeah.
or be associated with this press in this case or publisher. And so, I mean, I'd like to say that I always would have said no, but I do know that there are times in my life when it's really hard to see outside of your need to survive.
Yeah.
And at some point, I'm sure. And I mean, there's so much coming out now. So it's like, there's sometimes when I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I was associated with this person, place, or thing at that time, because now we're seeing a lot of
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Yeah.
true colors, you know? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I wish I could take that back. But I I think that's, that may be a family decision for some people. Um, and my grandmother always used to say before she passed away, like, I never want to lose my mind. And
Mm.
like I can deal with the physical pain or whatever. And she passed away from lung cancer. But it was like I just never want to lose my mind or my wits about me. And in that case, it's just I've never really been a like I do the day job thing and I'm really, really good at it. But around integrity and my own intellectual property and my work, it's almost like I can't see it, but I'm trying to connect with the part of me that can see yes.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have judgment for that. I have no questions about anybody else making that decision for themselves. It's just like for me, I'm like, well, let's get to Ubering. Let's get to let me go on and do this Uber Eats or something because
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it would be a shit piece too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I would be hella sarcastic.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna write this, I'm gonna send it to you. Basically, in between every line, fuck off. Right. And then they probably be like, we can't use this. And then I'd be like, oh, back to zero again. And so yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good question. And I think what this conflict has really done is put us all in this place where we're really facing what we will do, what we will give up, how we share our platform resources and influence. Um, and it's revealing a lot about our current relationships, the places we go, the people that we are clients and customers to. It's a thing. And so, people are like, oh, people ask, what would you have done, in Nazi Germany, or what would you have done in enslavement, like, here it is.
Yeah. It's like,
Here
what
it
are you
is.
doing in 2023? I mean,
What are you
why ask
doing?
those questions? Like, ask that question.
For real. So I don't
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that. And then, but I mean, it's interesting because there's so many avenues to self-publishing and blogging and doing those type of things. So, but I mean, you said rent, and I'm like, is there a family too? If there's a family too,
Yeah.
I might be more likely to swallow my pride for that.
Yeah. I mean, when you said like it might be a family decision, that's like, oh yeah. I mean, it's like because I think the problem is we're so teachers and even our heroes are constantly telling us about our artistic integrity.
Hmm.
selling out in relation to artistic integrity,
Hmm.
but they don't talk to us as much about moral integrity, you know?
That should be a leader to me. Like
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
can't align, I don't have to agree with everything. But if I
Yeah.
can't align with your values, with your belief system, with the way that you move and the way that you curate, don't exploit art, I I don't understand why we're like talking.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'm like, well, this doesn't make any sense. And I mean, now trust me, I got a late in life diagnosis last year of autism and ADHD. And so there's this strong sense of fairness and justice. And so if I felt like that was ever in question, I would probably not having,
Mhm.
to honor that sense of fairness and justice within me. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
pervasive for
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Mm.
This was really light. I appreciate your energy. Can you tell me in what ways are you experiencing joy? Are you experiencing any joy?
Oh my
It's okay if
God.
you're not, but
Yeah.
tell me, are
I've
you?
been watching these two ghost hunting shows, paranormal shows
Okay.
called Haunted Ireland and Haunted Scotland. And both of them, every chance they get, they're like, this castle was blah blah blah, where these fucking rich Brits used to live, and everybody in town hated them because they were awful. Like, I love this so much. Every chance they get it, like, oh, this rich British person who died of a heart attack here is stuck here because everybody hated him because he was awful.
No, no light workers tried to get
Yeah.
you over to the other side. They just
Yeah.
left your ass in that
I'm
castle.
like, this is hilarious. I just crack up the whole time.
Okay, so a show, stay with
Uh,
me here, a
uh,
show that is called Schadenfreude. And it's all stories of people where they're like ghosts are locked in somewhere where they were assholes and basically were just like, stay there, colonizer. No. Okay, cool. I was like, you're gonna do that show? You should do that show. Schadenfreude.
Americans can't pronounce that word.
But we sure can do
Oh my God.
Chachesky. We got that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What are you doing
Um,
for fun these days?
what am I
Anything?
doing for fun? I am doing a lot of improv comedy. So I've done improv comedy in the past, and now I have an element of it in the shows where I will at the end take all of the comedic material and make a spoken word poem, like an improv spoken word poem at the
What?
end. It's so fun. I look forward to it. Everybody's so goofy and but they're like socially and culturally responsive goofy.
Yeah.
So like the jokes are funny and like the jokes are like responsible. And so I'm like, okay, I can be here. And so the Illuminati and Black Friday are my two improv troops that I play with, and I really haven't done as much poetry reading and sharing. I do that kind of for the community good at like, events and stuff like that, but right now I've kind of taken a pause from everything performance wise so I can curate this book. Um, but that improv comedy, it really keeps me hopeful. Like I know I
Mm,
have like one show a month. I know we have
yeah.
rehearsals and those are so fun. And when I walk in there, like they don't care if you're a big deal or not. They're like, "Are you funny?" And so I just love that space where I don't have to be a corporate DEI executive or a community leader. I just go in there and I get to show my ass and I love it. I love it so much. And there's like we do songs and I get to like make up hooks on the spot. It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
Oh my God. That sounds amazing.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing and really resting. Like resting is really joyful. I wake up next to my wife and my cat. will sleep like on my back. And so I'm
Uh,
in this sandwich, and then I'm like, I don't want to get up. Who would want to get up? This is
right?
great. And then I
Yeah.
just like turn off my alarm and I'm like, you know what? The gym doesn't have to happen today.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the moments where I'm just, either in gratitude, and there's been a lot of community experiences with the healers where it's been, I just went to, let's see, it's called Interlude. It's actually on Spotify. Renee Dion and Monique McChrystal did like a meditative music experience.
Uh,
And like that was at the Columbus Museum of Art. I volunteer for Creative Mornings Columbus, and we have those every third Friday. And Dr. Mark Lomax was talking about rhythm and how our rhythms off as a community. And like it was like the through
mm,
line was like brilliant. But like those type of events and community events really keep me going. But those are few and far in between. I probably like I travel a lot, which is nice. Florida's not that great in general right now, but I do travel a lot there, and my headquarters are there for work. So um, I've always had a morbid sense of humor. My family is like jokesters. Like if I talk to my ancestors right now, like on my altar, there's like Old Forester, and I was putting water on there, and they were like, "What's that Kool-Aid stuff you got?" So like I have this right here, and that's
yeah.
grape Kool-Aid. I have these like grape Kool-Aid meals. And they were like, "Don't come back in here with no water without no Kool-Aid in it." You know what I'm saying? So like my ancestors are hilarious, and so it's an interesting time, but just trying to find the moments where I'm like, it's worth it, and it may not be worth it. Like we all may be blown to smithereens. I don't know. But it's just one of those things where uh just trying to find those moments and be present in those
Yeah.
moments. Dissociating
Yeah.
is one of my favorite strategies as well. And
Yeah.
so trying to stay present and show up for my own life. And also in the back of my brain all the time, it's like people are dying. People are dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like that constant um teeter totter, or I think of the
Yeah.
playground, where they have the seesaw, and it's just a constant onslaught of like, is this funny? Is this only funny to a few people that understand that, like, my moral imperative is good? Okay. Don't tell that joke outside. Okay. So it's like that, just figuring it
Yeah.
out. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to laugh. I'm in the church. I'm church giggles. I'm that person. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, like I'm that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
So just trying to find a joy and trying to regulate my nervous system on and off all day. That's it.
Love you. Thank you for having me, talking to me.
I love you so much. Yeah, you're just one of my favorite people. And so thank you for coming on here and spending time with me. I hope even from Columbus to Pittsburgh, you can feel some energy and
I
know
do.
that you are so loved and affirmed, and you are not alone, my
Thank
friend.
you. Thank you so much.